to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Rebecca Miller, along with co-host and radio show producer Kristina Lou and Otto Los. Hello, I'm so excited to hear what's going on in the town of North Hempstead. Of course, we're recording this on the last day of January. So when everybody's listening, it will be February 2nd already.
Groundhog Day.
2224.
Groundhog Day.
That's right.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I know we're just I'm ready. Let's just fly through these winter months and dive right into spring,
I'm
So
all
I'm glad
about
you check January off, get through February and go right into March, But Beck, I'm glad you're back. We missed you last week. Last week it was just Otto and I had to play engineer and host. Because we didn't have Dan either. It was quite, but we got through it, Otto. I think we really pulled together. And it was a great segment. I want to remind everyone, last week's show, we had Nicole Christensen on, who talked about Care Answered and advocacy, and it was a really, really good informational interview. And if you missed that, please check out our website, Project Independence, and you can just click on the radio tab and you'll see it up there, or you can go to the WCWP YouTube page also. So really, really good interview. That's right. From Crisis to Calm, her book, which gives like a lot of gold. She has a lot of golden nuggets of how to kind of be prepared and proactive, which, as you know, Beck, we always say is our kind of theme of the show. I'd say no matter what topic we are talking about, it always somehow goes back to being proactive, right? Even the first hour of the show, we had Tori Cohen on from the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center. And, that's really what it was too, right? It's I was sitting there listening to her interview, and it's, you think about people, we've known people who are affected, who are caregivers, and it's such a difficult disease to deal with, and it's so complex, and like there's really, yes, it's like, and we were talking during the break, you just wish that there was a cure already, or something that, but slowly, but there are these promising things that I'm glad she touched upon. But so much of it is, that she was about being proactive in these things and not reactive in these situations, and how important it is to have these extremely difficult conversations, Otto. And I know you mentioned that, Otto. I mean, these things are tough to talk about, right? And it's scary for the individual who's experiencing these things. It's scary for the friend or family member, when they're noticing that their loved one is, dealing with these things. But I think it is so incredibly important to really communicate, is the overall kind of theme of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's saying it's easy, but I think, it's critical. If you don't talk about, like one of the topics that I had in my mind, which we didn't follow through on, was if you're a person who we like call adult orphan sometimes, all right, and you're all of a sudden in a situation where you have memory issues and this, that, and whatever, but you don't have the good fortune of having a caregiver. What does somebody like that do? How do they, that's a tough situation. And I was going to ask there, do they have people who almost volunteer to be caregivers?
They probably help coordinate and connect and find people. I mean, there's a lot of factors that would probably go into what kinds of help is available out there, insurance questions, but, sounding like what Tori said, they're not turning anyone away, and kind of like what we do, Project Independence, if somebody calls up, and one of the things you brought up very, very early on when we were speaking with Tori was also the diagnosis. I mean, I think people probably put off getting a diagnosis on that one. It's so scary, and it's hard to convince somebody to do it. But there's so much hope. I think there's more hope if you can get that diagnosis early. It's just, who wants to hear it,
Right. No, you're so right, Beck. It's one of those things because it's like with so many things, right? You don't want to, get that, when you hear those words or the diagnosis, whatever it might be, but I think the overall rule of thumb is how important it is to get the earlier the diagnosis, the better off you are in general. There's
Right.
so many things that could be done, and that goes with all these, different medical kind of things. So it really is so incredibly important. And I love that on this show, I say it every week, but I really truly mean it, that when we have the ability to showcase these wonderful organizations, and they're certainly one of our partners in Project Independence, and resources in our toolbox. And I think it's just to know that there are these organizations on Long Island. We're so fortunate, that they have like these really, I mean, there's so many services that are provided there. And the socialization component, I think, really is just so huge, because when you are suffering with a diagnosis like this, your instinct is to kind of retreat and not to socialize, because you feel embarrassed, or you're scared, or you're confused, whatever it might be. So the fact that you get to be in these situations where you can have some fun, and I think that that's just as important as getting medical assistance a lot of time. I just love when she was sharing, the stories about bringing the pets in, and the horses, and the fact that someone was a
Music. Yeah.
barber and that triggered, I mean, how beautiful
Yeah.
is that? So I think it's so important to get people connected, and especially when they're, dealing with something so difficult, and just to be around other people. And I love that they're focused on the caregivers, as well. So it's something that I think, hopefully as time goes on, there are going to be more and more advances, which it seems like there will be. And the awareness. I'm really glad that you guys mentioned, just the different celebrities that are coming out, and talking about these things, because I mean, that's like with any issue, when that is brought to light, it really makes people say, like, okay, I mean, like, look, listen, Bruce Willis is like action star, right? So if you think about that, you're like, oh, Bruce Willis, Die Hard, he's just, like the ultimate action star. So the fact that he, has this extremely difficult medical condition, it just makes it a little more like, okay, like it does happen to it could happen to anybody situation. So
And, like, you think
I
of
think
somebody
that
like Robin Williams, a
right,
comedian who took his own life, and
right,
had there been more, when that happened, more information out
yeah,
there, and,
right.
possible help, what we know today. I mean, I would say that was about 10 years ago. I don't really recall
I know. I
exactly.
can't even. I
I don't
would.
know.
It feels like yesterday on
Yeah.
one hand, and then
Feels like
forever
less
ago.
than 10, but I'm not sure.
And
Yeah,
Otto,
Yeah.
another thing that we do talk about too is not getting a diagnosis, and then it could also be something else. I mean, we've talked about people who don't get hearing aids, who can't hear,
right.
and you kind of become isolated. Maybe you're on a specific medication, maybe there's something else going on. So
Yeah.
you want to get a diagnosis of whatever it is going on, because maybe it's not ultimately dementia. It's some kind of something induced with a medication, or some kind of lifestyle change that isn't working. Um,
No, you're so
yeah.
right, because that always just brings to my memory that one of the times that my grandpa was in the hospital, he had hearing problems in his right ear, and we it was so important. We would always tell people, write that down on the chart. So when the doctors or the nurses who are, there's such a turnover, whoever comes in knows they need to talk into the other ear, because you can't talk into your ear because you can't hear. And there was one time that we walked in and they were like, we think, he might be suffering, he needs to do some kind of dementia screening. And me and my mom were like, wait, what? And then it was just because they didn't read the chart saying, they thought he just wasn't understanding what they were saying, but he just couldn't hear them. So it is so incredibly important to, it goes back to our advocacy, topic, how important it is to really have kind of as much information and go into any of these situations with.
Yeah.
It's all, like what you just described. If people who are your caregivers don't realize that, like you did with your grandfather,
Mm.
then he's going to be treated like he's got big problems.
Yeah,
And you know, that's the way it is. But if you can't hear and you're laying in a hospital bed, like I could visualize me, take my hearing aids
right.
out, put me in bed, and I might not hear you.
Yeah.
Fact, you know, and it's not a good thing. And like Rebecca's mother, yeah, I know she wears
Yeah.
hearing aids, but the facts are when you don't wear them, it's, you can't hear. That's why you wear them. You know,
Right.
it's
Exactly.
like wearing glasses. Some people can't see very far at all without the glasses. And, you don't know that if somebody doesn't tell you.
Yeah, it's just listen, I think it's so important, we always talk about the quality of life and stuff and and I think like it's people need to get to that place, so many of these things, you don't want to face. And listen, they're uncomfortable. Like who wants to? Who wants to like have to sit here and plan for all these things and have all these tests done, but to really improve your quality of life and your experiences, there are these little things, like, a hearing aid situation or all these different things to get the help, to make life easier and better for whatever, you're kind of dealing with.
Hearing is one of my topics. There was an article in Newsday a couple of days ago about how young people are going to have a major problem with hearing. Uh,
AirPods, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, the noise level, you can't go to a sporting event without your head being blown off. They want it to be 180 decibels, you know. Uh, Come on, man, give me a break. Everybody in that stadium is now getting their hearing is being more damaged, really, and it's a
Yeah.
fact, you know. And music nowadays,
It's
uh,
the ear, it's the, headphones, it's the air. I mean, you're
everything.
literally wearing them almost 24/7. Most younger people today walking around with the AirPods in their ear constantly, which is right in the ear,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and it's loud.
and it's loud. The
Yeah,
louder the better,
yeah.
or
Until all
not,
of a sudden you wake up and you can't hear.
or you get
You know,
tinnitus.
There's the problem, of course, is you can't put an old head on a young body. You know, when you
True.
when you get older, you realize these things are going to stop working if you don't try to take care of them. And
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if you do take care of them, they may stop working. Uh,
True.
you know, uh, and
Yeah.
it can't happen to me. I'm not going to be one of those old people that can't hear. Uh, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
tough. I think, it's just one of those things. It's just how your brain is, because we even talk about that with, the sun, right? And, when you're young, you're like, forget it. I don't need sunscreen. I think like, I have to say, I do think that the younger generation is nowadays is a little more aware. I mean, and this is a positive side too, on a funny note, to social media and TikTok and Instagram, because all my little girls in my life, are obsessed with skincare because of these videos. So I mean, these little girls have better skincare routines than I do. It's really, I was like, you guys don't even have a blemish or wrinkles, but you're really going to town on this whole regimen. But they really are aware of the importance of sunscreen and stuff. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be a change in that, because I know when I was young, it was like, forget it, let's spray like the oil on, the tan is great. Uh,
and you're
so
not
it's
that
certainly
old.
something that I know. So thank you, Otto. That's why I keep you around. Thank you so
You know
much.
what? It's like education is so clearly the
Yeah.
most important thing. Education, information. I mean, I am like today, I mean, when I was growing up, how many young people were smoking cigarettes? Now, vaping is
Mhm.
horrible, definitely
Mhm.
horrible. I hate to see that. I think people are even not vaping as much, but very rarely do you see a younger person smoking cigarettes. I really don't see it that much. I mean, maybe in
Mhm.
the city they do. I don't know.
Yeah. All
Or
right.
Well, there was
um,
just an article, I think, in today's, I just really shot through it either today or yesterday about addiction and smoking. And I think a couple of years back, it was like 40 some odd percent of the population smoked,
Mhm.
and now it's down to 12%. And
Wow.
they attribute it all to education. You watch enough of these videos on television where the woman's half her face is gone and whatnot because of
right,
smoking.
right.
Sooner or later you better get the message that that's
Same thing
true.
with sunscreen. I mean, it's just the more
Yeah.
you
No, I
get
think
out,
you're
if
so, and
you
that's with everything,
you
and
wanna
that's
have
what's
your
like
face
so
cut off,
great
yeah.
about having these show, like having this show is, we can't, you can't control everyone. Everyone makes their own choices, obviously. But it's so nice to be in a place where we can, get the word out and educate people on things and have these amazing, amazing speakers on who will spend an hour of their time with us, going into all these different things. And also, before I forget, next week we have on Maura Callio, who is a community health educator from St. Francis Hospital Catholic Health. She's going to be on doing the heart of the matter, keeping seniors healthy, because February is obviously Heart Health Month. So she will be on talking about that too, because that's another quite complex issue. There's a lot of things and factors that affect the heart, but she will be on. So please tune into that. That will be February 9th. And also just some other shows coming up. We're going to have Shari Baton on, who's going to do Staying Safe in Ice and Snow and all about the PI transportation program. And we're going to have Ron Fatula on doing 2024 changes in Medicaid and new tax guidelines too. So a lot of good shows. Always call 516-869-6311 if you have any topics and I have to tell you guys, this just reminded me as I'm doing this. Yesterday, I'm sitting at my desk and I get a Facebook message from a senior who tracked me down on Facebook and said, "Hi, I watch you, Rebecca and Otto on the radio
I got it
show."
too.
Yeah, it was so nice. And she said and I gave her, my personal email, and she said, "Hi, she has some speech issues." And so she said, "I always hear you guys talking about calling 311, but is there a way I could email you to ask my questions? Because I've definitely," and I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "I really hope you enjoy the show." And she said she did. So it was such a nice little message to get on my
That's good.
personal, side of life. So obviously, if you could email us, I'm Lou K at northhempsteadny.gov. You could always email me if you ever have any questions too, and obviously call 311 or 516-869-6311 for anything we are talking about, anything you missed or whatever it might be. So
And
all the
me
good
too,
information's there.
Miller R at northhempsteadny.gov.
Well, we had lunch with a longtime friend last week in Port Washington, and we hadn't seen her in a long time. She watches our show all the time. So I'm going to say hello, Fran.
Oh, hello.
Hi there.
We're touched.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, we had a good lunch, and she was always a lot of fun. We've known each other for a long time.
Oh, good.
Like 60 years.
Wow. All right. You know what? Why don't we take a break? And after the break, Kristina, Otto, and I will continue talking about, or start talking a little bit more about, what's going on in the town of North Hempstead. You're listening to Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios Podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. We're going to hear more about what's happening in the town of North Hempstead. Kristina Lou, what's going on?
Yes, there is a lot going on. I'm just trying to pull up because I was wanting to make sure. Otto had mentioned during the break last week, Supervisor DeSena did her state of the town. I was manning the fort in the office, doing the SR system, but I was able to watch it online, and I believe it's archived on the town's Facebook page and on the town website. So you could catch the speech where Supervisor talked about all of the accomplishments so far and things to come. And I'm hoping to get her on the show so we could have her on to talk all about that. But it seems like there's a lot of great new innovations. Beck, I know you were there at the State of the Town.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was very informative. I liked it. We just heard a lot about, like you said, kind of more the vision going forward. So it seems like things are moving ahead. And she did give a shout out to Project Independence, our social programs and our exercise programs. So it was very nice to hear, to get recognized. So yeah, it was good. And, we'll talk, I'm sure, more about it when she comes on the show. And just if I could, I know, just talking about exercise
Yes, you took
yesterday,
the words right out of my mouth.
Today is January 31st, yesterday that we're recording this. Yesterday was the 30th, and it was the first day of registration for Project Independence exercise. And I have to say, in all my years of being with the town, it was the busiest day for registration. We had over almost 220 SRs to just register for classes, and people can register up to 2 classes. So most, people either did 2 or 1 class. So it was very, very busy. Many of the classes have already filled up, and there are still some classes available. So please call, if you're interested. You can call 311 or 516-869-6311. And again, if you're hearing this and it's Friday, February 2nd, 2024, or maybe even you're listening to it's an archive, it's probably going to be much more full by the time you actually hear. But please call 311 just to get any information on the exercise classes. So you're very successful.
And Beck, is there a waiting list for classes that get full? So if you call and a class that you want is full, do they put you on a waiting list, or how does that work?
So, we in the SR, we have a class choice that, basically if you couldn't get into the class you wanted, the waiting list is basically, if the classes don't fill up, you're welcome to add that class. But most of the classes there's a waiting list for or fill up right away, like the major, the big roomed classes. But if there are some classes like yoga or Tai Chi that there are always availability. So certainly just give a call a week or 2 down the road after a few of the classes have come and people for whatever reason don't show up, we'll consider that, someone else's place. So yeah, you can always call.
You said in the SR? What is SR?
So that's when you call. The only way to register is by calling 311. And the SR is a service request. Every call is assigned a number. So it tracks every call. So if you call in, right now we're in the 4,000s because it's kind of early in the year. So there's been, almost 5,000 calls into 311 call center since the first of the new year. So yeah, that's a service request.
And I just want to remind people, last week, Otto and I did a lot of going over our kind of year-end stats because I finished, the report, and we were promoting all the wonderful, wonderful programs. And since we're talking about exercise, I just wanted to let people know, on top of, obviously, there was over 300 people that attended each week an exercise class, which is just absolutely incredible. And on top of that, since our shows air on North Hempstead TV, our exercise programs, and also on the YouTube site, there's over 10,000 people. And I could vouch for this because I went through each YouTube video to see how many views it had. So over 10,000 views, between all these ways of watching the exercise program. It's just absolutely incredible. And I love that was really something that came out of the pandemic that we stuck to, that people wouldn't let us get rid of, because there was a panic. Beck knows those calls that came. It's like, wait, you're still keeping, North Hempstead TV's programs, because I think it's such a nice, whether that's the only way people want to exercise. I know my own self. I like, being in my home and doing things in my house. And it's nice too, if you can't get into a certain class, that you're able to still take something at home or supplement it, whatever it is. And the fact that it airs 7 days a week, 3 times a day on North Hempstead TV is really, really great. So, if you miss it, you could really base it upon your schedule, which I think is just so awesome. So
3 times a day?
3 times a day.
Yep. Unless there's another program on that preempts it, and on the weekend. So,
like maybe a presidential speech or
something like that, or some
Yeah,
other
but
program.
it's pretty much honestly because I, talk to Alan and, we'll look at like the schedule and it's a pretty much the schedule is 7 days a week, 3 times a day for exercise. So it's really, really cool. And it's such an awesome program and a testament to you, Beck, for really taking this on. And I love that there's always kind of new, interesting classes, added to the mix of things, which is fun. The past, I don't even, how many years have we done? Is it just 2 now with line dancing? I think.
Well, no, I mean, Margaret used to do line dancing.
Well,
So
yeah, like
when
the Zumba,
she
right?
left, and then we hired a new line dancing teacher. Now we have beginning line dancing and intermediate line dancing. So we really listen to people because we did
Yeah.
ballroom dancing. We tried it. It didn't really take off. And we listened to people. So, and some felt that one of the line dancing classes was a little too easy. So, we work with the line dancing instructor, and now we're doing beginning, and then the second class is intermediate. And we brought on in the fall, we brought on aerobics. So that was nice. We're doing low impact aerobics at Camera Park. And then right after that class is chair fitness. Chair fitness is really taken off nicely. And the chair is really a prop. It's there if you want to sit, it's there if you want to lean. It doesn't mean you have to do the whole class on the chair. You can always let the instructor know, I really kind of want to stand up most of the time, and he or she will offer modifications of different types of ways to do the exercise if you're standing or sitting. There's so many more. We have dance fitness, we have tai chi for balance, yoga, chair yoga. It's so much. It's just a really great. There's 17 classes each week, and the classes are in a lot of different facilities. We're able to now go back post,
Yeah.
pandemic into some of the smaller rooms because obviously we can't hold as many people. But prior, when we came back right after the pandemic, we needed those bigger facilities so people could still social distance. So we still like that. We like that concept. Nobody really should be on top of each other anyway. So, in the past, there were times where we could have had 60 to 70 people in a room. And that's just too many for for safety issues other than just safe, social distancing. Yeah, it's a great program. There's no charge for anybody. You have to be a resident of the town of North Hempstead, 60 or older. We've had in the past a lot of people coming outside of the town. And unfortunately, this is for the for those people. They're like, well, why don't they do it in my town? And I said, I can only tell you what we do here in North Hempstead. I can't, I think that a lot of the towns do have programs. You just have to call and find out about it. Sometimes other towns also have programs. They charge a little bit. So it really depends. And they don't know how much people want to exercise. You have to call. You have to
Yeah,
make
there
it,
is. That's what I was
it's
just
like,
gonna say.
it's what we do. We listen to the residents, and, if we
No,
get
and
a
I
lot of
love
calls.
back that you mentioned that because especially in the exercise program, because I've been in meetings when people have asked questions about and you really do listen, and that's kind of the overall thing, and that's really a founding part of Project Independence is to listen to the residents, and that's why we always tell people, and I'll bring up the advisory committee meeting that's coming up on February 21st. There's an advisory committee meeting, and that's over at Clingy Martin Park. It's also via Zoom. So if you want to partake in that way too, and we're going to have Maura Callio actually also on that talking about heart health as well. But on top of the speaker, coming to the advisory committees are really a place for anyone 6 year over, and even people who are caregivers or community organizers. You don't have to be a senior to come, and it's just a great place to voice questions that you have or needs that you think it's and we take note of it. It doesn't just go in one ear and out the other. It's really a collaborative discussion that goes on in all the advisories. So I encourage everyone to check it out. Otto's one of our founding members
That's
of
right.
the advisory committee.
And
And I
what
think
do
Well,
you
I can
think
just go
that
back. I'm
I
sorry, go
wanted to
back to, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say what, Kristina, what you were talking about, where we listen at the advisory meetings, and just regarding to fitness, is that at last year, we had a member of the advisory committee, a newer member, and she, was taking part, and she said, "Hey, I teach Tai Chi." So what did we do? We hired her, and she's
Yeah,
so popular now
she's
that
so great.
she's actually teaching Tai Chi at Fun Day Monday. So as well
Cool.
as at
Mhm.
Fushillo Park. So that was a really great match.
Now,
Go ahead,
one of
Otto.
the things that I would like to do, I don't belong to an exercise program, but you can exercise. It's good to go because it gives you motivation and socializing and whatnot, which
Absolutely.
luckily I have without going to a program. But I do exercise and I do walk and I do these things on my own. Now, I have to admit that there's a lot of times where it loses to something else. I don't do it. I want to do it, and it's right up here. I'm going to do it. So
Right.
sometimes programs encourage you. You have to do it because you're going to the program. On the other side of the coin, I encourage trying to do something. The more and more I read, and the more and more I hear, you do not have to become an NFL football player with your training, lifting 500 pounds or whatever. You really just have to maintain a good level of movement
Mhm.
and you know, stay so you can be mobile. And I encourage people to try to do something, as I think your mother came up with this thing a long time ago, sitting on the couch or whatever, being a couch potato is the new smoking. Um, if you sit on the couch all day, that's not a good thing.
That was
You know,
actually Jackie Shankman. I must
was
give
that
her
who it
credit
was?
where credit is
Okay.
due.
Yeah.
Who, that was kind of her go-to catchphrase. But Otto, that just reminded me too, is so many years ago, and I think it's actually in a Pioneer issue. You were talking about one of your friends who, was essentially just in the house, but would walk around the dining room table. And that always stuck with me because, anytime you talk to any professional person in these days, they really try to hit home that, you know, any movement is good movement. It goes to what you're saying. And it could be the littlest thing, right? And they were saying, and I love when we have these guests on that say, listen, you have things around the house that you could use as kind of a small weight, whether you have an orange or a canned good, I mean, there's so many things you can kind of be creative in the house to do. And I think it's so important because, starting small, you say, okay, and then you could tackle on something else, and that's what I always say to people. I yell at my own parents. I say, you don't have to, do miles upon miles on your first walk, but you do a little, then you add to a little, and then, it's just it's really just getting that kind of routine and movement in that I think is just so, so important. And Otto, I love what you said because I think a lot of times people get turned off saying like, oh God, like it's just too much. I can't do it. I'm not trying to be, an NFL player, as you said. But I think it's just for everyone's got different capabilities and interests. And I think the overall message is like to just like do something, to
Right.
get your
Just
body going.
and listen to your body, most importantly, because even, if something doesn't feel right, please listen to your body and stop doing it. Especially as we get older, if you know the difference between a muscle strain and just kind of like over exercising, which is different, just take a break. I am someone who has probably always over exercised, and as I got older, I still have and had a lot of stamina. So I continued working out at a pace that I probably should have slowed down. And I am still, since probably the summer, kind of suffering with an Achilles injury. That if I kind of listened to my body and I knew that was tired, but I continued going because of my stamina, because I could go and I had the energy to go, but my body was telling me something else and I didn't listen. And I'm still nowhere near back to exercising where I was. I even have difficulty teaching yoga because that Achilles, those joints are so, you use them to show. So really be very careful. And it's wonderful if you have that stamina. Walking is the best thing you could do. Walking, and lifting weights. It's really, as we get older, you don't have to exercise. It really, even though, like I said, even if you have the stamina to continue and go, and you feel like you could go for another 2 miles on the run or lift heavier, it's probably not the best for you because our bodies are aging,
Well,
so you
when you
want to
say
just listen
lifting
to your body.
weights, all right, I
Yes.
know if, like me, I use 10-pound dumbbells.
Right. Perfect.
That's it.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm
You
not
don't
I'm
need to
not
go
going to
super
lift
heavy.
300 pounds. I never
Right.
could. So why should I
Right.
start now? I could hardly roll 300 pounds. Forget about picking it up.
Right. And one of the most important parts of the body that I think we all talk about, we all kind of like don't want to even deal with as we get older, is your core strength. It's so important to work on just tightening up that core because the core is really what's going to help you stand up. A lot of times, people feel they can't get out of a chair if it's too low. Even on a toilet, there are toilets that are very low. But anyway, if you build that core strength, your legs are going to be strong enough to get you up. I think we do have to take a quick break. So after the break, Kristina, Otto, and I will continue talking about what's going on in the town of North Hempstead. You're listening to Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Welcome back to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. So we're going to hear a little bit more of what's going on in the town. But before we do, I just want to mention all the different ways that you can listen to and even watch Project Independence in You. You can watch Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town, on North Hempstead TV, channels 18 or 65, that's on Optimum, or channel 46 on Verizon Fios. Also on North Shore TV. Shows usually air around 2 p.m. You can also visit www.mynhtv.com for up-to-date schedules. And then also WCWP Studios YouTube channel or the Project Independence website. There's so many ways to listen if you can't listen live. We have it archived. You can always reach out to Kristina or I, and we can get you links to the best way to listen. So right before the break, we were talking about fitness, specifically core strength and the bathroom, how important it is to build that core strength, because that's part of what's going to help bring that upper body up and take some of that weight off the legs. So together in unison, along with, handles or grab bars, you should be able to get up. So work on that core strength. Now, Otto, you had mentioned that
Well,
you're
there was
doing
just
something, an
there was just an
exercise.
article about the ability to squat. And, basically they say it's one of the key exercises you should do when you get older is to squat. And meaning you squat down, you get up, you go down. You can hold on to something, hold on to the sink or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But if you think about it, in order to get out of a chair, you have to be able to kind of handle squatting. To get in and out of a car, you have to be able to do that. To get out of bed, you basically have to be able to do that, So
now, Otto,
there's a
we're
lot of,
all in different levels of physical conditioning. Some of us are in, really good shape. Some of us haven't really exercised much in our life. So before you take on
I agree with that. Yes.
any kind of new exercise or squatting is great for you. However, a lot of the body is involved, your knees, your legs. definitely just make sure that it's something that's conducive to you, and get and look up or speak to somebody in the field to do it the proper way. You don't want to do it the wrong way, because that can lead you to other things. But there's so many different kinds of exercises and techniques that are really helpful, but you really
You know,
should learn.
Those
there's
are
so
all
many
very
different
valid.
adaptive kind of things now, which are really cool because those always like seem to pop up on different things that I'll see online. And I remember like with my grandpa too, we were always trying to find something because, he couldn't move. He had the neuropathy in his feet, so it made it difficult for him. He was a man who was pretty active most of his life. So, there's so many interesting things because even if you are unable to do something like a squatting, that sounds simple, but you might just be bound to a chair. There's so many cool little devices now that you could move your legs, that you just are sitting in this, and we got that from my grandpa, I remember. And there's different handheld kind of things because it was so important. And I love this segment we did on the show, and I wish I could remember what month, but they all blend into another. But when we had on Metro PT and they were talking about, doing these dual task kind
Yeah,
of things at home. And it really didn't matter, how, your physical capability. It was just, being able to do, these things. You didn't have to be running around. It was really interesting things and how important it was. So I really encourage people to check that out, not to throw in the towel because there really are very interesting, adaptable things. Even for my own self, I saw this one thing on TikTok, and it was like it almost looked like a mini little, and it was small and it folded up. It was like a little elliptical thing that had like stretch bands attached to it, and the person was watching TV while doing it. And I said, "This is an exercise I could get behind." But it was just really interesting. There's cool stuff out there that can be, obviously there's very expensive things, but then there's really simple things that can help someone that might not have the ability to be super mobile.
You
So
both bring up very
really
valid
interesting stuff.
points. Sometimes I over judge what somebody can
Mm,
do, and I
yeah, no, of
realize there are a
course.
lot of people that can't do that, and you have to be careful. You can't just jump up and down if you never
right.
did it before. Um,
Yeah,
you do have to be careful. There's no question
We
about that.
all start somewhere. And, Otto, there's a
yeah.
lot of exercises that you could do kind of in that squatting realm where you're going to sit down. You have a chair and you're just sitting down, and you make it a little bit slower, and you engage your core and your legs. So, it's just important to know how to do it properly. That's really key. You want
That's
to
Right.
right.
do it
That's the key.
properly. You want to make sure that it's something that, is good for you to do at this time. I mean, there are times where we all go through a sore back, a shoulder. So you don't want to start doing anything when you're ever in a spasm of any kind. And, do your research, speak to your doctor. A lot of times, I have to say today, Otto, a lot of doctors that will give you diagrams of how to do exercises properly. How to,
Hmm.
like, if you how to stand up, how to bend at the knees, and there's all kinds of things, that you can get on the internet.
And
But it's
that's
really
also going to be the topic of our April. I was just going back and forth with my Northwell rep, and the topic of our April advisory. We're going to have someone coming on talking about, movement and safely moving. So if you come to our April advisory, you can get some really good information on that too. And Beck, you had also mentioned grab bars.
yeah.
And I could say how incredibly important grab bars are for so many different things. And it just made me want to remind people that you can call through on one and get connected to our Rebuilding Together Long Island program that we partner with at Project Independence. Because they will do that. They will install railings, they will install grab bars, do some slight weatherization and some, minor repairs. But the grab bar and railings piece is so huge. And I'll take it back to my grandpa too. Like I remember what a game changer it was for him to have these grab bars installed. Towards the end of his life, he was really just in a bed, but he wanted to get up. And so we sat there with him and said, all right, like, let's look, where is your instinct to grab? Like, would you normally do? So then we put a bar there. And this way he
Mm,
was able to do that, and in the bathroom, it's so, I mean, the safety factor of it and it still allows you to, have a sense of, mobility too. Like it goes such a long way. So I can't say enough wonderful things about grab bars and our partnership with Rebuilding. So you could certainly call 311 and we can get you connected to that program. It is income based, but they do, have other qualifiers too, veterans and disability, and it's the social worker will work with you. It's really, really an important program. So please make use of that. Get those grab bars installed. And I think a lot of people, you know, back in the day, but I think people are becoming more open to it. I remember it was like, oh, I don't want to have a grab bar in my bathroom, but like now I think people are realizing just how important it is. And listen, I think for like so many people, it's really a helpful tool, and certainly with the railings too. We just want
Mhm.
to maintain safety for everyone. And I'll also mention our Help at Home program with TRI. They serviced over 139 constituents from all things involving gutter cleaning, light yard work, very light yard work. I want to remind people, we're not doing, they don't have the capability to do, crazy properties. Moving heavy items, window washing on the first floor. Gutter cleaning is also just the first floor as well. But over almost 2,000 people have been, since the program came into 2010. Gutter cleaning is the number one request on the first floor. And it's just such a wonderful partnership. We actually just this week got a call in from a senior into the call center saying how thankful she is for this program. And that's the only reason she called, was just to say, like, thank you so much.
I love that.
And it was so nice because it's really a special program where individuals with different disabilities are prepared to get, go into the workforce. And they have a great relationship with the seniors. Stanley, their job supervisor, is incredible. So it's a great program, and it's very utilized. And I just love seeing all the requests and surveys that come in with what a difference it makes for people. Otto and I talked about it last week with the changing of the light bulbs and batteries and your smoke detector, these things that we take for granted, and we were laughing saying, how many people have their smoke detector that, the battery died and they took it down and never, did anything with it. So having a program like this, able to, and you can use it 3 times a year, which is great. So you can kind of gather all your seasonal requests and have it, just part. And I see that, since we've been doing the program for so many years, I see like the seniors who like have, their little to-do list that they have each time they come over. So great program, really, really wonderful. So just had to give a shout out to that. And I also have to mention, because the clerk's office emailed me telling me, can I please talk about this on the show? And I said, absolutely. The town's 15th annual vow renewal ceremony is going to be on February 14th, actually on Valentine's Day,
Oh, how
at the
nice.
house at Harbor Links. It's a really special day. You could obviously renew your vows, but if you don't actually want to renew vows, you're still able to attend the luncheon with your friends. The price is $18 per person for the luncheon, which includes champagne and cake. There will be music and dancing, so enjoy the afternoon swaying to music that pulls at the heartstrings or is reminiscent of memorable times. So, a really fun day. It's always a great event. Love is certainly in the air on that date. So please call 311 to reserve that. It's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., February 14th. So you can reserve your spot and get all the information about payment. But definitely check it out. It's so nice. I love that. And I love seeing the couples, who have been married for so many years, renewing their vows is also really, really nice. So check that out. And Otto, your favorite thing is coming up this weekend on Saturday, February 3rd, is the Town of North Hempstead Polar Plunge. In partner each winter, the Special Olympics polar plunges are held throughout the country to attract thousands of thrill seekers to engage in a worthy and exhilarating fundraising event. There's a simple process to register for that. You can call 311. It's a long address, or I would, I would say it. But you
The
can call
reason it's one of
311
my favorite
to
is I like to go there and watch when you go in.
I know Otto's really just been, trying to push me every year to dive into this polar plunge. I don't know if I could do it. Listen, in theory, I think about that because even with these cold plunges that are so beneficial, to your health, I know a lot of my friends, have these cold plunge, things that they do. outside, and I'm always like, I could get behind this, but then I'm just like, so what I've been doing, I must say, this will be my golden nugget at the end of my shower, for, and I try to up the time, a little more each time. I'll put the water down to, very, very cold. And so, I'm doing like, my brother's up to a minute. My brother got me into it. He does about a minute. I've been like, trying to get there. I probably only last like 40 seconds. But it really does make you feel good after. And there are so many benefits to, doing these cold plunges. But I don't know, that being said, if I'm ready to dive into the polar plunge, Otto, but shout out to all the amazing people that do it for a really, really wonderful cause. So once again, that's February 3rd, which is Saturday. So
I'm not sure I'm ready to do the one you just described at the end of the show.
I have to say, because my brother's like, oh, because, my husband, works outside. So he's the king of doing that during, the hotter months. But my brother's like, no, you got to just do it like year round. I'm telling you, it's like a game changer. It feels so good. So I've really been trying to. So, there's some times where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. But, I'm trying to maintain my consistency with doing that. So it does feel good. I must say, I have to give credit where credit is due. It does feel really good. A lot of our programs are coming back into action in the month of February. We have all of our social groups I want to remind people of. Thursdays are social discussion. That's virtual. Our Golden Hearts bingo and blood pressure screenings are over at the Roslyn Community Center on Thursdays. And it's really fun because you get to meet with the social worker and the nurse there and have some fun playing bingo too. We have our Blankets of Love group, which are, hard at work already. They've already, since the year started, I believe they've already done 2 donations, which is incredible because it's still January today. So if you are talented and into, making these beautiful blankets and shawls and hats, they're just incredible. That's on Tuesdays over at Clingy Martin Park. We have our bridge class, which we have beginner and intermediate, and that's offered at the Yes We Can Community Center on Wednesdays. One class is at 11 a.m. and the other one is at 1 p.m. Excuse me, at 12 p.m. And then we have, of course, I mentioned our Project Independence Advisory Committee meeting. We didn't have one in January, so it's really exciting that we'll be back for February. February 21st, our fabulous partners, Cornell Cooperative Extension, Nassau County, is going to be at Magnolia Gardens doing Facts on Fats, learning about cholesterol and heart healthy facts. It's really important. Those things are very involved. Cholesterol, and you can find out about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol and what fats are good and what, it's all the things that can make your head explode. So you can learn all about that and how it improves your heart health. So that is 11 a.m., February 21st, Magnolia Gardens. And then in March, our Fridays at Yes We Can, which I've got while being on the air today, a bazillion emails for people registering for all the different programs at Yes We Can. And that includes the Exercise for Balance and Strength program, is a partnership we do with NYU Langone. Then Let the Games Begin, Boost Your Brain Power and Coordination, is with our nurse, Kelly Steinman. We have our What in the World is Going On program and Color Me Calm with Gia. And then we'll also have heart-to-heart bingo and blood pressure screenings there too. So call 311 to register for that. And it's really nice to see all the people. And what's really great also is that this balance and strength program does not count towards your 2 classes you can take with the PI exercise program. So you could technically have 2 exercise programs, with PI, and then do this exercise and balance too. So really, really great. So you cover 3 days there. Our St. Francis band will also be making its stops at the North Hempstead Yes We Can Community Center on March 1st and at Clingy Martin Park on March 22nd. So really, really good stuff, guys, going on around the town. I can go on forever, but we are running out of time, Beck.
Are we there? Is it that time? That went really fast. That went really fast. So again, the first hour of the show, a great guest, Tori Cohen from the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center. Wonderful information, and talk of the town was great. Otto, as always, thank you so much. And Kristina, wonderful show. Well, thanks for listening to Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town. I'd like to again thank Kristina and Otto for a great show. Project Independence in You is a production of Long Island University Public Radio. Dan Cox is our engineer. Join us again next Friday at 10 a.m. on LIU Public Radio. Goodbye and have a great weekend.